The horror genre is known for churning out a lot of sequels, and if a main character from the original movie becomes an icon, they likely show up again and again. If they keep showing up in promotions for a sequel, it's logical to believe they'll play a major part once again. That's why it can be infuriating when the hero from a previous installment makes their triumphant return, only for them to be snuffed out. So let's take a look at some. I'm Adam, this is What Culture Horror, and here are 10 horror movie survivors killed off in the sequel. Number 10. Jack Forrest, Maniac Cop 2. As the title suggests, Maniac Cop 2 centers around a serial killing police officer called Matt Cordell. When a patrolman called Jack Forrest becomes the prime suspect for the murders, he has no choice but to track down the psychotic cop himself to clear his name. Despite Cordell's apparent death during the final showdown, he returned in the sequel as a zombie, more powerful than ever. When he resumes his killing streak, Jack dismisses reports, certain that Cordell is gone for good. Sadly, he's proven wrong in the worst way possible in Maniac Cop 2. While Jack reads a news story about how he saved the city from Cordell's tyranny, the Maniac Cop fatally stabs him from behind. Since Jack was depicted as a smart, intuitive, and resourceful person, it was surprising to see him being taken out of the picture so early. But another reason why Jack's death was shocking was because he was played by the incredible Bruce Campbell. Since the Evil Dead star has a rep for portraying undead killing heroes, nobody expected him to check out in the first 20 minutes. Number 9. Jamie, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. Despite its legacy, Halloween has had more duds than hits. With that being said, it's safe to say that the 6th installment is the worst of the lot. When The Curse of Michael Myers retconned the titular villain as a minion for a druid cult, there was no question the franchise had jumped shark. There's also a subplot revolving around cloning Michael Myers' DNA, just in case you thought it couldn't get any sillier. Since the story is filled to the brim with gobbledygook, it's easy to forget how unceremoniously Jamie Lloyd is bumped off. Being the lead in the previous 2 installments, it initially looked like Laurie Strode's daughter would once again serve as the protagonist. Now, Jamie was all grown up. This was the perfect opportunity to turn her into the final girl who put a stop to Michael Myers once and for all. Instead, the filmmakers opted to have Jamie impaled to death within the first few minutes. With her dead, the movie then focuses on other characters with little to no connection with Michael, which makes for a far less compelling story. Not even the film debut of the mighty Paul Rudd could save this travesty. Number 8. Reiko Asakawa, Ring 2. In Ringu, a reporter called Reiko Asakawa discovers a cursed videotape that kills the viewer 7 days after watching it. Reiko eventually discovers the tape was created by an enraged spirit called Sadako after she was unjustly murdered. When Sadako's body is put to rest, Reiko assumes the curse has been lifted, but in the final moments, Sadako kills Reiko's ex since he watched the tape. As devastating as this death is, it's only the beginning of Reiko's troubles. In Ring 2, Reiko disappears without a trace, convincing her friends she has died. Over time, it's revealed Reiko went into hiding with her son, Yuichi, who developed psychic powers similar to Sadako. While running away from the cops, Reiko dashes across the road during heavy traffic. Tragically, she's hit by an oncoming truck, killing her instantly. Even though Reiko lasted much longer than other entries on this list, it was sad to see her die, especially after she managed to evade Sadako for so long. Number 7. Clear Rivers, Final Destination 2. Final Destination 2 opens with Kimberly having a premonition of a traffic pileup while on the highway. Using her foresight, Kimberly prevents the death of several drivers, including herself. When the survivors start dying in freak accidents, Kimberly tracks down Clear, the only returning character from the first installment. Clear explains how she was one of 7 people who got off a plane moments before it exploded. After Clear and her companions cheated death, the Grim Reaper began eliminating them to restore balance. Since Kimberly saved multiple people who were destined to die, Clear warns her that death will come for them to tie up loose ends. Since Clear initially dismissed the idea that the embodiment of death was after her, it's interesting to see her mentoring Kimberly on the matter. When Clear quickly works out what order the survivors will die in, it's apparent the former skeptic is now a bona fide expert. As such, she's Kimberly's best chance of staying alive. That's why it's startling when Clear is suddenly incinerated with no build-up whatsoever. Considering Clear prevented Kimberly from incurring death's wrath, it's a shame she didn't live to see another day. Number 6. Cotton Weary, Scream 3. Scream fans have to feel bad for Cotton Weary. In the original, he was framed for the rape and murder of Sidney Prescott's mother. After he was exonerated, it would have been nice to see him live the rest of his life in peace. But since this is a horror franchise, viewers knew it probably wouldn't work out for the ex-convict. Even though things seem to be looking up for Cotton in Scream 3's opening, things don't bode well when he receives an anonymous phone call. Though the caller sounds like a flirty woman at first, it isn't long before they take on the iconic Ghostface voice. When the killer says they're about to slaughter Cotton's girlfriend, Christine, he rushes back to the house. Little does he know, Ghostface has used a voice modulator to sound like Cotton while terrorizing Christine. When Cotton arrives home, Christine attacks him, adamant he's the murderer. When the real Ghostface appears behind Christine, Cotton tries to warn her, but to no avail, allowing the ghoulish maniac to slay them both. Cotton's end was tragic, since he died while being falsely accused of being a murderer for the second time. Now hey guys, I'm going off script for a second here to ask you for your favourite example of a previous horror movie character who was, well, killed off badly in a sequel. Make sure you let us know down in the comments, and you know the usual, give us a like and a subscribe while you're there. That would be lovely. Alright, now back to the list. Number 5. Sarah Carter, The Descent 2. The Descent duology follows a group of female splunkers who find themselves trapped in a cave populated by flesh-eating humanoids called crawlers. Since The Descent, in the UK version anyway, ends with the lead character, Sarah Carter, cornered in the cave as the creatures close in on her, her demise seems written in stone. But when a sequel was greenlit, it was decided that Sarah did survive, just like in the US release, allowing the character to return. The Descent 2 begins with our heroine escaping the subterranean depths with no memory of what happened to her. When the authorities accuse her of murdering her friends, Sarah is forced to return to the crawler's den with the rescue party. Upon re-entering the cave, she's astonished to learn that her friend Juno is still alive, even after Sarah left her for dead. Seeking redemption, Sarah tries to save Juno from the crawler's leader, but fails. To ensure Juno didn't die for nothing, Sarah draws the crawlers towards her, giving her companion Rios time to escape. Despite Sarah's noble gesture, it was all for naught. After Rios is attacked, she's tossed back into the cave, where she suffers the same fate as Sarah. Number 4. Eric Matthews, Saw 4. There are few heroes in Saw who had less luck than Eric Matthews. In Saw 2, the police detective spends the entire movie trying to rescue his son from Jigsaw, unaware he was never in danger. Not only that, Jigsaw's apprentice has Matthews' ankle shackled to a pipe in an abandoned building, giving him little means to escape. Matthews proves his resilience by freeing himself, after shattering his own foot with a toilet lid. Even though Matthews' determination is commendable, his efforts proved meaningless since he's recaptured. In Saw 4, Matthews is placed in one of Jigsaw's tests, where he must avoid slipping off an ice block while a chain hangs around his neck like a noose. As the protagonist, Officer Rigg, is about to burst into Matthews' room, it seems like the detective is moments away from being rescued. But as Riggs opens the door, it triggers a mechanism that causes 2 ice blocks to slam into Matthews' skull, pulverizing it to paste. After everything Matthews was forced to endure, it was a huge shame to see him go out in such a gruesome manner. Number 3. Alice Harding, Friday the 13th Part 2. While camp counselor Alice Harding was attending Camp Crystal Lake, she discovered a serial killer was picking off her friends one by one. Now this was of course the plot of the first Friday the 13th, in which it seems like Jason, a boy who drowned in the lake years ago, has risen from the grave to exact his revenge on those who failed to save him. In the climax, Jason's mother Pamela Voorhees is revealed to be the murderer, driven mad by her son's death. During the final confrontation, Alice lobs off Pamela's head, putting an end to the nightmare once and for all. Or so it seems. Friday the 13th Part 2 begins with Alice opening her fridge, only to be met with Pamela Voorhees' decapitated head. Alice only has a second to scream before Jason appears behind her, driving an ice pick into her temple. Since Alice was Friday the 13th's first final girl, it's ironic how she's also the first person to be killed off by the series villain. Number 2. Karen, The Grudge 2. In The Grudge, Karen finds herself being haunted by a vengeful ghost called Kayako after she enters her home. Since Kayako is tethered to the house, Karen sets it on fire, hoping it will force the dark spirit to pass on. While Karen is treated at the hospital, she learns the fire was put out before the building burned down. In the final moments, Kayako inexplicably appears before Karen, just before the screen cuts to black. With an ending like that, it's heavily insinuated that Karen was met with a grisly fate. But after a sequel was greenlit, it seemed like our heroine could make a return. Although Karen does feature in The Grudge 2, she's killed off in the first scene. After that, the curse passes on to her sister Aubrey, making her the new final girl. Sadly, Aubrey isn't as compelling as her sibling, making her a lackluster protagonist. Although Amber Tamblyn does her best, she doesn't have the same star power as Buffy, as Sarah Michelle Gellar. For this reason, anyone who watched The Grudge 2 hoping to see Sarah Michelle Gellar facing an insidious spectre once again was left deeply disappointed within the first 5 minutes. Number 1. Hicks and Newt, Alien 3. Over 30 years later, and this one still hurts. Aliens concluded with Ripley, Hicks, Bishop, and Newt defeating the Xenomorph Queen, and riding off into the proverbial sunset. When a follow-up was announced, fans were excited at the prospect of Ripley and her teammates returning. Now, it's common knowledge that Alien 3 experienced one of the most hellish movie developments in cinema history. There were so many scripts and changes in director, the finished product had no resemblance of the initial concept. But even if the threequel didn't turn out great, moviegoers were still keen to learn what happened to our heroes. Well, it turns out, it wasn't anything good. Before the opening credits have finished, it's revealed Hicks and Newt died after their vessel crashed. After Hicks' squad was wiped out and Newt lost her family in the previous installment, fans were praying these two would have a happy ending. Not only were their anticlimactic deaths heartbreaking, it diminished the uplifting conclusion of Aliens. Though Alien 3 isn't without merit, it's difficult to defend since it opens with the biggest middle finger imaginable.